It's Friday, the 9th of April 2021. Welcome to the Fear and Greed Business Headlines, the business news you need in just 5 minutes. I'm Sean Aylmer. In today's headlines, the federal government will recast its COVID-19 vaccination rollout after safety concerns around the AstraZeneca jab. Plus, global tax laws could be revamped, and that's good for Australia. New rules for sexual predators in the workplace. And the business of buying thoroughbreds is booming again. Our lead story today, the federal government will overhaul the COVID-19 vaccination rollout after medical experts said the AstraZeneca drug, the bedrock of the local program, shouldn't be given to people younger than 50 because of concerns about blood clots. The Australian Technical Advisory Group on Immunisation said the use of the Pfizer drug was preferable for people under 50, though anyone who has had the first of the two AstraZeneca jabs should receive the second. Chief Medical Officer Paul Kelly said the clotting events were rare, but when they did occur, 25% of patients died. It came after Britain's drug regulator advised the AstraZeneca jab shouldn't be used in people under the age of 30, and overnight Spain and Italy said they'd restrict the jab, only giving it to people over the age of 60. The AstraZeneca vaccine was the main drug to be given to Australians. The new recommendations will significantly delay the quest to achieve herd immunity. The government also has 20 million doses of the Pfizer drug on order, but they might not arrive until later in the year. The rollout has not quite been a disaster, but it's not far from it. Earlier yesterday, Mr Morrison stressed that the AstraZeneca drug was safer than the contraceptive pill, but then he had to backtrack. He's previously said 4 million Australians would be vaccinated by the end of the month, but that won't happen. The recovery from the COVID-19 outbreak has just hit a very substantial speed bump, and that's bad news for all of us. In overseas news, the Biden administration has proposed a new model for taxing multinational corporations, calling on the world's largest businesses to pay levies to national governments based on their sales in each country, according to the Financial Times. The plan was sent to 135 countries negotiating international taxation at the OECD. I've mentioned this before. This is a big deal. The big tech companies would have to pay their fair share of tax in Australia, something that's not happening now. New figures show the European Union has exported more than 80 million vaccine doses since the beginning of February, though clearly not to Australia. Japan has overtaken the UK as the main destination for jabs, followed by Canada and Mexico. And Netflix has had a win in the ferocious battle for content after it secured exclusive rights to new movies from Sony Pictures after they leave theatres. It includes upcoming films in the popular Jumanji and Spider-Man franchises. Locally, the S&P/ASX 200 jumped by 1% yesterday to a new post-pandemic high, led by the miners, telcos and financial companies. The index closed at 6,999 points, having briefly pushed beyond 7,000 points earlier in the day. The S&P/ASX 200 is now up almost 4% during the past 5 trading sessions. Prime Minister Scott Morrison said his government will empower bosses to fire workers involved in despicable behaviour, making sexual harassment a sackable offence. It came as part of the government's response into Sex Discrimination Commissioner Kate Jenkins' landmark Respect at Work report. Good news for supermarket shoppers, but maybe not shareholders. Coles has cut prices on more than 250 products, triggering concerns of a price war as the group tries to regain ground from market leader Woolworths. Coles has relaunched its Down Down program, whereby prices of key products are reduced for months at a time rather than a week or two, according to the Financial Review. There are fears, however, that a price war could eat into earnings at both Woolworths and Coles. The university sector has struggled through the coronavirus pandemic, losing an estimated 17,000 jobs and $9 billion in revenue last year. Yesterday, the Vice-Chancellor of the University of South Australia, David Lloyd, said funding prioritisation had shifted so much that private schools were now receiving more in taxpayer dollars than the university sector. He said $12.1 billion went to schools and $11.9 billion went to universities annually. The head of Australia's biggest superannuation fund said new laws that would give the Federal Treasurer power to block super fund investments was mad and introduced sovereign risk into Australia. Ian Silk from Australian Super said potential joint ventures between local and international funds could fail if the overseas investors were worried that the local government could prevent investments. And the biggest sale of thoroughbreds, the Easter yearling sales, wrapped up earlier this week with very strong results. Local buyers were back in the market. More than $132 million was spent on horses, with a very strong 88% clearance rate. 22 lots realised more than $1 million, with the most expensive costing $2.5 million. That's the Fear and Greed business headlines for today. Make sure you hit follow so you get it every morning. And if you'd like more detail and more stories, search for our full Fear and Greed podcast. Today it also includes an interview with Tom Kasker, the founder of Aerologics, the Uber for drones. I'm Sean Aylmer. Have a great day.